Okay, now we're recording. I guess we didn't do it right the first time.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so let's start at the beginning,
Okay.
like we've never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
So, what year were you born?
1926, and it was April 16, 1926. And I was born in my grandmother's house.
So did your parents tell you anything special about the day you were born? If anything?
The bells rang, the school bells rang, and my mom told me that right at 8 o'clock I was born, and right when the school bells rang. So I rang the bell, and it was on a Friday, as I recall.
And where was this? Where were you born?
It was in Quapaw, Oklahoma.
Okay, and Quapaw's located
in the Indian Territory. It's right next to Missouri and Kansas line. It's not just, there are a few miles each way, but
so right in the corner.
Up in the northeastern corner of Oklahoma.
So it was pretty dry. Or did you get a lot of rain, or was it just pretty?
It was pretty barren, and my early recall was the tiling piles, and we call them the tiling for whatever reason, and that was the residue that came from the lead mines.
Oh.
And that was the main industry there.
Lead mines.
The lead mines.
So there was probably a lot of fatalities, or it was not healthy working in those mines.
No, it wasn't healthy. And my mom, the reason we moved when I was 7 years old to Oregon was to get Dad out of the lead mines, and he had started to work in there.
Oh, okay. So what is your first, most vivid memory when you were back there in Quapaw?
You know, because early on, before he started in the lead mines, my father did a harvesting type, and we moved from wherever the crop was to the next one, to the next one. And so it's my most vivid memories are my grandmother's house, and I don't know if we stayed with her some, or I don't think so. I think we traveled with my parents, and that just isn't clear in my head. But we did move back to Quapaw, and Dad rented a house, and at that time he went into the lead mines. And so that was the reason that my mom eventually wanted to move to Oregon.
So when you think about neighborhoods that you lived in when you were young, they were multiple neighborhoods because you moved around so much.
Yes, yeah.
Probably not even neighborhoods, they were just...
They weren't, no, and they were transit type people.
Yeah.
And so that's the way my early beginning was. Dad, we were in the Great Depression at that time.
Yes.
And so jobs weren't available. And I can remember my dad telling somebody when he was seeking employment, he said, give me 75 cents a day and I'll give you 25 cents of that back.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And that was how hard pressed we were. Mm-hmm.
So then you, so what about your mom and dad? Where was your mom born?
I think she was, one was born in Kansas and one was in Missouri.
But they're all so close to up there anyway.
Yeah, so I'm not even sure.
Yeah. Do you have, and I'm sure you have I'm sure you have memories of both of them because they both lived until you're adults. But did you have early memories of early memories of your mom and dad when you were still in Quapaw, or?
Well,
just he was working and.
Most of my memories seem to be around my grandmother's house, and so I remember walking across the prairie to town, and we walked everywhere, and but Dad must have gotten a car because we traveled some, to get to
Yeah.
where the harvesting was.
When you drove to Oregon, so you had to have a car of some sort, right?
Oh yes, yes. But by that time, of course, he had his job in the lead mines,
Yeah.
and he was getting
So, so who was more strict raising you, your mom or your dad?
no question.
Mom?
No.
Oh, your dad.
No, my father.
Oh.
He was very rigid. His father was a Dutchman, and I don't know if that has any bearing on this, but my father was brought up very strict, and he was beaten, and so that was his background, and so he was very, very strict.
So you were, I'm sure, knowing you, that you were a pretty good girl. You probably never did much to get in trouble. Do you remember anything that you did specifically that you still remember that you knew that was breaking the rules of some sort?
No, I can't. But my father was so intent on something that, when anything went wrong, and he lined us up and had to get somebody to confess. And so, anyway, he was very strict. But my mother balanced that with her love.
Yeah.
And she was a very gentle, loving woman. And
I remember her. She could be strict though when she was a grandma. I remember,
Mm-hmm. She could be a little bossy.
Yeah, that's why I thought maybe she was the strict one when we were growing up.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
But she protected us from actually, in a sense of the word.
Yeah.
Because when we were older, she'd say, "Well, now your dad's going to get home at this such time, and so you need to be here."
Yeah, exactly.
So
So earning money in those early years, you've already talked about that a little bit in the harvesting and then the lead mines. So when you moved to Oregon, then what was the income? What was the occupation of?
Well, Dad had saved some money and from the lead mines, and we traveled in 2 cars actually, because his brother and his family came with us. And so the first trip to Oregon, it was a 2-car, and anyway, his brother's name was Claude, and he had married an Indian woman, a full-blooded Indian. I don't even know that I ever knew. Maybe I did what tribe she came from, but anyway, she was an Indian.
Did they settle in Coquille or Philomath as well, or?
Oh well, no, we went to Coquille.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to Coquille, out of Coos Bay, and the reason we went there was because my father's sister had already moved there, and so they were already established, and so that was where we targeted.
Then what did your dad do for occupation once that he had moved to Coquille?
Well, the lumber mills were hiring him, and my father was good at getting a job, and so he went right to work, and it wasn't long until we rented a little house, and it wasn't that far from the mill, and so he walked. And one story about my father, he bought a little car with a rumble seat, which we eventually took back to Oklahoma on a trip.
Yeah.
And he parked it in the garage. There was a little garage to our little house, and he said he wouldn't drive it until it was paid for.
Oh.
He did not drive that car until it was paid for.
So how long do you think that was?
I have no idea.
Did it sit in the garage the whole time?
And we walked everywhere we went, but it wasn't that far.
Yeah.
We walked to school and back. I can remember that. And I remember my pride in my new raincoat that had it had a hood on it.
Yeah.
And I can remember.
You still look good in a raincoat with a hood.
Well, it rains a lot in Oregon, and so we walked often in the rain.
Exactly. So, so other than the car that was never paid for.
Well, it was paid for.
Well, I mean, it was paid for eventually, but what other kinds of things did your family spend money on?
Mm.
other than just the like food
Well,
and
I can remember the first Christmas we had in Oregon, and what a delight it was, because my father had made money enough to, my mom bought candy, and I can remember the peppermint sticks, and I can remember how it was such a happy thing.
yeah.
It was because it was a happy time.
How old were you at that time, do you think?
I was 7 when we went to Oregon.
So that Christmas year, that was your
That was my first Christmas. And,
yeah.
yeah, and we had our own little house, and it was just a time of joy. It really was.
So how long did you live in Coquille before you moved to Philomath, that little pink house?
Well, we had made a trip back. We had made 2 trips back to Oklahoma. My mother's sister's husband, Bessie's,
Yeah.
and Carl Marley, he died. He died at a very young age, and so my father, he had a good heart, and he wanted to help. So and plus fact, my father liked the road. He liked to travel. And,
Yeah, I get that from him probably.
You do. I've always said that you got that from your father, from your grandpa.
Yeah.
Anyway, we took the little car with the rumble seat, and my mom had canned jam in quarts, and we put that under the seat of the rumble seat.
What's canned jam?
Oh, berries.
Oh.
Wild berries.
Oh.
And she could not stand to have anything go to waste.
Yeah.
So she canned it by the quart and put it in underneath our rumble seat.
Yeah.
And so we went all the way. Well, Shirley, my younger sister, was up in front with Mom and Dad, but the other 3 were in the rumble seat. And we went all the way to Oklahoma in that.
In the rumble seat? Now that means you were facing backwards, right? In the rumble seat, face backwards?
No, we faced it forward. We faced forward. And that was those days anyway.
Yeah.
That one we
Wow, that sounds like a fun trip.
Well, yes. Yes and no. My dad, we had blackberry jam sandwiches often.
Yeah.
And when he wanted to keep going and travel. But
So speaking of siblings, since you brought it up, so how many? You just have sisters. You don't have any brothers.
no,
So how many sisters did you have?
3 sisters, Naoma, Virginia, and then me, and then Shirley, my buddy.
So they were born. Well, you were the youngest. No, Shirley was the youngest.
Shirley was the youngest, and she was a baby when we came to Oregon.
Oh.
Well, no, she was a young one, 2 years younger than me. So I guess she was probably 4.5.
How was? Do you have any specific memory of each one that stands out? I know that you probably have hundreds, but is there like one specific instance for each sibling that?
Well, my oldest sister was a saint, and she was born with she didn't have good health from her birth, and that plagued her all of her life.
Aunt Naomi.
Aunt Naomi.
Yeah.
And then Virginia was little. We used to call her Dingy, but she. That's just what we did. But my best friend was Shirley, my younger sister, and so we shared every secret of our life, and she was very, very special to me.
Yeah, it was interesting when we were younger. As a child, you kind of observe what's going on. It seemed like the Woggies were pretty tight with us, and
we were,
yeah.
Yes. And the best times we had were with the Wagamoths.
Yeah.
And and she married Ralph Wagamoth. So.
Yeah, who's an awesome guy too. So
yeah.
So the you don't remember your grandparents, I'm assuming, right? Because that.
Well, yes, I do, because my father moved them to Coquille.
Oh, really?
And built them a little house.
Oh.
My father went into construction after a while, and he built. First of all, he built our house.
That's in Philomath. That one in Philomath.
No,
Oh.
The one in Coquille was the house he built for us, and he built my aunt's house, and that was after. On this trip, the rumble seat.
Yeah.
And we went all the way to back to Quapaw, and so anyway, the long story short, my Aunt Bessie, my mom's sister, who had just lost her husband, sold her house, and Dad bought a truck, put a tarp over the top of it, and her 8 children.
Wow. You all went in the truck all together?
Mm-hmm.
Was there room for furniture?
No, we just came with our few clothes, and
Wow.
and in the I think anyway.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, but it was a truck that accommodated us, and I'm sure we were crowded.
Yeah. Interesting. You don't remember that trip as much.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
No, I don't. The first trip was traumatic to me.
Yeah.
Because it was so long, and it took us over 2 weeks to get to Oregon.
So now, where'd you stay at night?
We put quilts down on the ground and slept on the ground.
So it
and
had to be.
My mom would make a little fire and cook some biscuits, or she couldn't make biscuits, but anyway, she managed.
So you did that for 2 weeks.
Yes.
So what if it rained?
Well, it didn't rain on us all the time.
Wow.
I don't remember. I think it was in the late spring that we first made that first trip.
Wow. So
anyway, the second trip, we came back in the truck, and my father built my aunt a house. We all lived together. We rented, and I think my dad built the house, and I'm not positive if he did all the wiring, plumbing, but he was capable of it.
Yeah.
And so whether we had to have it inspected, I don't even remember that detail.
Probably back then that wasn't yeah.
So anyway, he built her home, and then they moved out. We were all living together during the construction, and they rented a house.
Wow. That's.
That was my father's heart.
But being on the road for 2 weeks and camping outside, that's.
And I
never knew that.
That's the reason I never wanted to go camping.
But you were. It was interesting that you, when we would go to Brooks, you had no problem. I guess we had cots in those tents, right?
Yes, we
for
did.
camp meeting.
We had cots, and we weren't on the ground, and we had a tent, over us.
Yeah.
But to just be out in the wide open spaces.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's interesting.
And that was a trip that my father had one broken axle, and he found in the ditch.
Unbelievable.
The part that he needed.
Wow.
So God was taking care of us even then.
Reminds me of my Arbuckle trip. But I had to go to a junkyard for that. I didn't find it in a ditch.
That was an amazing thing. It was a miracle.
Yeah, I can't believe
God
it.
provided just exactly what my father needed, and he was able to repair it and get us to the next town.
Wow. So, did you have any pets when you were young at all, or
Pardon me?
pets? Did you have any pets when you were?
No. My father didn't even want to see a dog out the window.
Oh, really?
It was very upsetting to him for some reason. We never had a cat or a dog.
Until Skippy, that was your first dog.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to some of the things you used to like to do when you were younger. So what was your favorite food when you were growing up?
I don't think food was ever really that important to me.
You didn't
I
have
was always skinny Winnie.
nothing that you would just look forward for Baba Grandma to make.
No, not really. Not really.
Those chicken and dumplings she made were pretty awesome.
Yes, they were. You remember that? And,
yes, I do.
She could do a good coconut pudding, and I always loved coconut, and she could do something with, but she was not a pie baker. She could not make a pie crust.
Yeah.
But it was just a coconut pudding, and she browned it in the oven with browned coconut. But I always loved coconut.
Yeah, boy, I do too.
Mm-hmm.
Those coconut cream pies were great. So did you, when you were young, did you guys have certain games that you played all the time, or
well,
as a family? Especially when you're traveling together for 2 weeks, I suppose you had to come do something to keep.
We just got in the car and we get, but it's amazing, and I think I heard this just the other night at Bola's house, Teresa's mom.
Yeah.
She said the human body is capable of so much. We are a survivor. We're made with that, and surviving.
Yeah.
And skill.
Yeah.
And we do have what you have to do.
Yeah. No, absolutely, I agree. But were there any fun games that you guys played when you were?
Well, we played Ante Over. Do you know that?
No. How does that? How did that game go?
Well, we moved we were on one side of the house, and we threw the ball over the house, and the other person on the other side would catch it, and then we'd run and figure out which way they were running and tag them. And if they were out, then, but if they came the other way. But anyway, it was called Ante Over. Ante Over, and that we did that. That's the only game I can remember that we played.
Okay, and then other things you used to do for fun? I mean,
Life didn't offer a lot of it when we were young, and when I was in high school, I went to my job immediately after school.
What did you do? What was your job after school?
In a restaurant.
Oh, making pies?
No. Making money so I could buy my own clothes.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't learned that my folks couldn't, and my mom, when we were little, my mom sewed every dress that we wore, and even our underwear she made.
Wow.
That was the way it was.
So you probably at some point especially in high school, you wanted to have more fashionable clothes that
Yes.
And to get those, you had to get a job.
I had to get a job and work, and I started when I was a freshman in high school.
What were some of the clothes that you would buy that you had?
Sweaters and skirts.
Sweaters and skirts.
And I wore sweater well.
Yes, pleated or straight skirts. What was the fashion?
Straight skirts.
Yeah.
Well, one time was fashionable was the full skirt.
Oh yeah. Poodle skirt. What were those called?
Broomstick.
Oh, brooms. Yeah.
Broomstick. Yeah, because you could wrap them around a broom, I think.
So I'm assuming since you had to get a job that you never got an allowance when you were younger.
Oh no, we didn't even know the word.
I remember when we got a quarter, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, well this tape has a couple minutes left on it before we have to switch.
Okay.
So what responsibilities did you have at home when you were young? What were some, I'm sure with 4 girls you each had jobs.
Oh, we had jobs Saturday, on Saturday.
Yeah.
And my mom cleaned house on Saturday. So my older sister had the job of mopping the floors. And my other sister and I can remember having to stand on a stool to be tall enough to knead the bread. We made the bread for the whole week, and so one would stir it to a point, and then the other one would knead it. And interestingly enough, when I got in high school and we took home economics, there was a class that we had in school. The instructor said, and I never forgot it, said, you've had experience with bread.
Yeah.
Because I knew how to handle dough.
Yeah.
And I said, oh yeah, I didn't tell her the
You've
story.
been working with dough your whole life.
I didn't tell her the story. But anyway, I'm not sure what Shirley did. She probably, she was a favorite in our family because she was a baby and cute and had black eyes. And but anyway, she was a love.
So speaking of school, were you a good student?
I was an excellent student.
I can
was
imagine.
Speaker of my class.
I didn't even need to ask that question. I'm sure that was.
Yeah.
How come I didn't get that from you?
When I graduated, my parents came late, and they stood in the back.
Yeah.
And I was a speaker, and I can remember being sensitive to that.
You're valedictorian for your graduation class?
Yes, and the superintendent of the schools were there, and I can remember he said something about me, and I was offered a scholarship at University in Eugene.
Oh.
But
U of O.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But my father didn't agree with me leaving town.
But you went to San Francisco, which is a little even more extreme than Eugene, Oregon.
That was after I worked in the bank for a year and a half.
Oh, okay.
And I had saved enough money to buy my own ticket and go. And at that time, my father gave me his blessing.
Yeah.
And that was when they moved to Philomath.
Oh, they moved to Philomath then.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
and
I see.
After
I thought
I left to
you never lived in that house then.
Pardon me?
You never lived in that little pink
No.
house? Oh. I thought you did. So, see, what do I know?
No. My father went and built, they lived in I think they lived in a little tent before he built the house.
Oh.
That's the way it was.
So going back to school, so what was in high school, what was your favorite class?
English.
Yeah.
I planned to be an English teacher. That was my goal. Or a nurse. And I changed to a nurse, and my father objected, and that's when he didn't want me to go to the university because he said he didn't want me to become a nurse.
Oh. And your least favorite class was
anything arithmetic.
Math, period.
Math. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to, at this point, I think I'm going to take a break because I'm running out of the film,
Okay.
and then I can upload it and then redo it. So I'll make mark on my notes, and thank you so much for spending this time.
It's been fun.
We'll do some more later or tomorrow.
Okay.
So anyway,
Thank you, Stephen.
you bet, Mom. It was great. I learned a lot.